So you've typed CeMAP into Google, you've clicked 10 different websites. Half of them call it 3 modules. The other half call it about 5 units. One blog is telling you that it takes 3 weeks. The other one is telling you it takes a year. Someone on Reddit says that's the easiest exam they've ever had to sit in their lives. Someone on a forum says they failed it twice and they've nearly quit. You're reading all about a 2025 syllabus, a 2026 syllabus, a FESRE, persona view, bright space. You still don't know a thing about what it actually is. Every single one of those pages is trying to sell you a course at the bottom of it. And here is the truth that nobody is sitting down and actually explaining to you properly. CeMAP is not complicated. The industry around CeMAP is complicated. The qualification itself is genuinely straightforward once someone lays it out end to end in plain English without trying to flog you a training package at the finish line, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. I'm going to walk you through the complete study guide to CeMAP as it stands right now in 2026. We're going to be covering what the qualification actually is, what's changed, how CeMAP 1 and CeMAP 2 and CeMAP 3 are structured under the new format, what the exams actually look like, how long it realistically should take to pass, the revision approach that works, the common mistakes beginners make, and what the stress is genuinely like when you're studying it yourself. Also, what the income potential looks like on the other side when you become a mortgage advisor, and what happens after you qualify. By the end of this, you're going to have the map, not a sales pitch, not a motivational speech, a clean structure picture of what you're walking into. So you can make a proper, informed decision about whether this is for you. And if it is for you, then you can go in with the right type of plan. So let's get straight into it. So first, we need to talk about the baseline, okay, which is CeMAP stands for Certificate in Mortgage Advice and Practice. It's a level 3 qualification awarded by the London Institute of Banking and Finance, which you'll now often see branded as the Walbrook Institute. It meets the education standards set by the Financial Conduct Authority, which means if you want to legally give a mortgage advice in the UK, this is a qualification you need. You don't need a degree, you don't need a finance background, you don't need A-levels. There is no formal entry requirement at all. If you can read, you can write, and commit a few hours a week to studying, then you can do your CeMAP. Now, a huge piece of context that most beginners miss. From January 2026, the CeMAP syllabus has been updated. This isn't a minor tweak. The old structure that your mate or your cousin sat a few years ago is no longer the current structure being used. If you're starting from scratch right now, you are studying a new syllabus completely, full stop, all of it. And honestly, that's the version that this video is built around, because that's what you are going to be sitting. So let's break that down into those 3 modules that exist. So CeMAP 1, which is now called FESRE, and that first module used to be called the UK Financial Regulation. It has now been replaced by the FESRE, which stands for Financial Services Regulation and Ethics. Same place in the qualification, but it's a broader content. It's slightly higher academic level. So the FESRE is split into 2 units, FRE1 and FRE2, and you sit them as 2 separate 1-hour exams. Each exam is made up of 25 multiple choice questions plus 3 case studies with 5 questions each. You need 70% to pass. Now, FRE1 covers the industry and regulators, the key parties, how the financial service landscape fits together, and FRE2 covers skills, principles, and ethical behavior. This is how an advisor is actually expected to operate in the real world. Now, most beginners get this module and then they panic significantly. They panic because it is wide. You're not just learning about mortgages here at all. You're learning about pensions, investments, insurance, the FCA, anti-money laundering, consumer duty, ethics, suitability. It feels like you are drinking from a fire hose and nothing is actually sticking. Now, I want you to hear this clearly. That feeling is completely normal. It is not a sign that it is the wrong career for you. It's a sign that you're very early in the stages, okay? Every single mortgage advisor in this country sat with the exact same stack of notes you're sat with right now and thought, there's no way I'm ever going to remember this. And they did, and you will too. Not because you're clever, but because you worked the reps. CeMAP 2 is now split into the MRT1 and MRT2. Now, this is the mortgage content. This is the part that actually feels like the job. Under the new structure, the old CeMAP 2 is now broken into 2 modules, which is MRT1, which is mortgage law, practice and application, 50 multiple choice questions in a 1-hour exam. And then there's MRT2, which covers the wider mortgage practice. So these are 40 multiple choice questions, 1 hour, same 70% pass mark as everything else previously. Now, this is where it clicks for most people. You stop studying theory and you start studying the actual product, how mortgages work, how the law underpins them, and the repayment methods behind it, the rates, the product types, the application process, the lender criteria, protection, conveyancing, early repayment charges, the lot of it. And for a lot of beginners, this is actually the easiest section because it finally feels tangible. You can actually see yourself having these conversations with a real client, and it stops being abstract, which definitely the first modules feel like. Then you have CeMAP 3, which is now called the ASSC. Hard one to say. This is the third module, is the one that everybody used to underestimate under the old syllabus. But under the new syllabus, it's been properly upgraded. It's now called the ASSC, which is Assessment of Suitability Standards in the Consumer Scenario. ASSC is a case study based exam. You're given realistic client scenarios and you have to apply everything you've learned in the first 2 modules to make sensible, suitable recommendations. There's no more hiding behind memorization. You've got to actually think. You've got to go and read a situation, identify clients' needs, apply regulation, apply ethics, and apply product knowledge, and arrive then at the right answer. This is the module that separates people who have memorized and people who have understood. If you've done the first 2 modules properly, really engaged with the content rather than just crammed it all in, trying to pass, the ASSC becomes a natural extension. But if you shortcut your way through the first 2, the ASSC will expose that significantly. Taken as a whole, under the new syllabus, you are going to be sitting 5 unit exams across 3 modules: FRE1, FRE2, MRT1, MRT2, and ASSC, all online via Brightspace with remote invigilation and all 70% pass marks. If you fail a unit, you can just rebook that one. You don't have to retake the whole module. The resit fee is about £110 per unit, paid directly to the LIBF, and that's the whole thing. That's what people are talking about when they say, I've got my CeMAP. So how long does it actually take? Well, this is the question that everyone wants answered, and the answer is annoyingly honest. It really depends on you. If you've studied intensely full time and with a structured provider and no life distractions, you'd get through the whole qualification in like 6 to 8 weeks. People do it. I actually did it myself. Boot camps exist that are designed around that timeline. But for a normal human being studying for a few hours a week around a job, around a family, around life, then the realistic window is going to be probably 3 to 6 months. Module 1 on its own typically takes 6 to 10 weeks at a few hours a week. That's probably the hardest one in my opinion. Each of the other modules are a similar pattern. The honest average for somebody going at a sensible, sustainable pace is going to be around 4 to 6 months from registration to being fully qualified. So if you're telling yourself, I'm going to do this in 2 weeks, and you've got a full-time job and you've got 2 kids, you are setting yourself up for a massive fail when that first exam hits. You're going to blame yourself then, and you're possibly going to quit. So don't do that. Please don't do that. Choose the timeline that matches your life and stick to it. So let's talk about the revision strategy and what actually works. I'm going to save you 6 months of noise here because the revision advice out there is wildly overcomplicated in my opinion. There are 3 things that genuinely work. So number 1 is little and often beats heroic weekend binges, okay? 1 hour a day, 5 days a week will absolutely significantly outperform 6-hour Sunday sessions every single time. Your brain consolidates overnight, so you cannot cram CeMAP the way you crammed your GCSEs. The content is too broad and it is way too layered. The second thing is mock exams are the single most valuable revision tool you will ever possibly use, okay? Not rereading the textbook, not highlighting passages, not making Pinterest pretty flashcards. Mocks are the thing. Sit mocks under timed conditions, get them wrong, learn what you got wrong, do them again. The question formats are consistent, and once you've seen enough of them, your brain is going to start to recognize the structure of the question before it even finishes loading the answer options. The third thing is understand. Do not memorize. If you can only recognize a fact when it is worded exactly the same way, then you will fail on exam day for sure. The exam will reword it. They'll dress it up inside a case study. They'll put it next to a plausible sounding wrong answer. The students who pass first time are the ones who genuinely understand why something is the way it is, not the ones who just know the answer to it. Little and often, mocks under pressure, and understanding over memorization, that's the whole strategy. Anyone selling you something more complicated than that is selling you something you don't need. So let's talk about the common mistakes that beginners make. We're going to cover the traps because most failures are avoidable, and it's always the same handful of mistakes. Mistake 1 is trying to learn all 3 modules at the same time. People buy a bundle, they open every textbook at once, and then they end up flicking between regulation and ethics and mortgages and case studies, and none of it is sticking. Pick a module, finish it, pass the exam, move on. Sequential focus beats scattered effort every single time. Mistake number 2 as well is delaying the first exam. People study for 10 weeks, feel like they're not quite ready, push the exam back. Study for another 4 weeks, still don't feel ready, push it back again. You're never going to feel ready. That feeling is not a signal. Book the exam, work towards the date. Pressure of a booked date does way more for your revision than another 4 weeks of vague studying ever will. And the mistake number 3 is skipping the ethics and regulation content because it's boring. Yes, it's dry. Yes, mortgages are more interesting. They are. That's a stretch, but it is. And no, you cannot skip it. It's the foundation of literally every conversation you will ever have as a mortgage advisor. And it's the foundation of the ASSC case studies, which you're going to have to do at the end of the exam. Mistake 4 is not doing mocks until the night before. Mocks are the training. They are the tests before the tests. Do mocks from week 1. Get those reps in. Mistake 5 is going it alone with no structure. A good training provider gives you the textbook, the mocks, the tutor support, the sequencing. You can technically do CeMAP with just a raw textbook, but you'll be making it so much harder on yourself. Pay for proper support. It costs less than a failed exam resit and a lost month. So now let's talk about stress. And let's be honest, because nobody wants to talk about this properly. CeMAP study is not stressful in the way that people imagine it to be. It's not brutal. It's not devastating, but it is a sustained low-grade mental load for 3 to 6 months. You'll feel it. You'll have evenings where you're knackered from work, and the last thing you want to do is open that textbook. But you're going to have to do it anyway. And then you'll have weekends where your friends are at the pub and you're revising capital adequacy requirements. You'll have moments where you fail in mock and you'll convince yourself for about an hour that you've made a terrible career decision. All of that is normal, by the way, completely normal. All of it is part of it. What helps, though, is structure. What kills it is chaos. Pick your study hours, put them in your diary, defend them, treat them like a client appointment that can't be moved. The advisors who pass first time aren't the most motivated ones, they're the most scheduled ones. They don't rely on feeling like studying, they rely on the calendar telling them it is time to study. Lifestyle-wise, be realistic. If you're working a full-time job and studying, something else has to give for a few months. Usually, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be social life. Sometimes maybe it's the gym. That's fine. It's not forever, okay? For 4 to 6 months of slightly reduced fun to land a qualification that fundamentally changes your career and your income is one of the best trades you are ever going to make. Income potential after passing is significant. So let's talk about that and let's get practical about this side of it, because it's the biggest reason that most of you are watching it. And if you've reached this level, it's why you're serious. Once you're CeMAP qualified and you're giving advice under a regulated firm, entry-level employment for mortgage advisors in the UK typically is going to sit somewhere around £20,000 to £30,000 a year, often maybe even with commissions on top. That's the bottom end of the ladder. Experienced employed advisors, particularly those working inside estate agencies or larger brokerages, can earn mid-range salaries plus commission that often push the total earnings into that £40,000 to £60,000 bracket. Self-employed advisors, though, which is where most career switches eventually end up, is they have no ceiling and no floor. Some self-employed advisors earn 30 grand a year, some earn 150,000 a year, some earn considerably even more than that. The difference is almost never knowledge. They've all come from the same CeMAP. The difference is structure, positioning, and the ability to consistently bring in clients and convert them properly. And that's the honest picture. CeMAP is the license, but what you do with the license is completely up to you. So let's talk now about the training requirements after passing. You see, once you pass your CeMAP, it does not mean that you can walk out of your bedroom and you can just start advising clients the next morning. You'll need to be working under a regulated firm authorized by the FCA. Most mortgage advisors join either a directly authorized firm or an appointed representative under a network. And they go through a period called competent advisor status, which is known as CAS, which is where you'll be supervised until you build up live cases. Typically, this runs 3 to 6 months, depending on the firm and your volume. And during that period, you're going to have a senior advisor who's going to sign off all your cases until you are deemed competent to advise independently. After that, you have ongoing, continuing professional development. And that is stuff you'll have to do. This is a way you'll need to keep learning. The industry changes, the rules changes, the products change. And being qualified once doesn't mean you're being qualified forever. You need to keep up with your required CPD. Let's talk about the long-term career opportunities. This is where CeMAP actually gets interesting. Here's the bit the training providers never really quite explain to you. CeMAP is a door. It's not the room. Once you're qualified and you've built a lot of experience, the whole world of financial services opens up to you. You can now specialize in lots of cool things. You could do first-time buyers, self-employed borrowers, buy-to-let, later life lending, complex cases. You could add your equity release exam and start advising on that. You could also pursue your DIPFA, which makes you a fully fledged financial advisor, advising on investments and pensions and wealth. You could move into compliance, into underwriting, into training. You could build your own brand, build your own firm, hire a team, or run a lifestyle business that gives you the income and the freedom you wanted when you first typed in, how do I become a mortgage advisor, into Google. You see, the advisors I work with who are genuinely thriving, the ones earning well, working sensible hours, and actually enjoying their job, they didn't get there by being the smartest students on their CeMAP course. They got there by treating CeMAP as the starting line and then building proper structure around it. So discovery calls, clear positioning, protection conversations, retention systems, content that brings clients to them. Qualification gets you into the room, but the system is what keeps you in it. So if you're sat here right now with the tab open on the LIBF website, terrified to click register, here's what I'm going to actually tell you. You do not need to know everything before you start. You do not need to understand every acronym in this video before you even commit. You just need to know which module you are going to do first. Book your study window, pick a training provider that actually supports you, and schedule your hours before the next life excuse shows up to steal them. CeMAP isn't the hardest part of this career. Building a business on top of CeMAP is the hard part. And that's exactly the work I'll walk you through across the rest of this channel and my podcast channel. Okay, that's the sales framework, the client conversations, the protection positioning, the lead generation systems, all the things that take a newly qualified advisor and turn them into a properly paid one. So subscribe, because this channel breaks down exactly what it is you need to do. And if you want to know how much mortgage brokers make, I actually did a deep dive video on that. I'll link it up on the screen right now.